Let's talk about Iran. Now that the Iranian government is facing civil unrest and it looks like it could possibly be overthrown by another revolution, let's take a look at it. Let's start with Queen Victoria. I want to start there for a lot of reasons. Actually, I take that back. Let's start slightly before Queen Victoria, and let's talk about the East India Company, specifically the East India Company. The reason the United Kingdom had such a successful empire is because of the East India Company. The East India Company was very good at two things. They did two things worldwide, and it made the British Empire the empire that how was it placed? How was it said? The sun never sets on the British Empire. Well, the reason for that is that initially, when the East India Company started, one of the things that they did was they got everybody addicted to drugs. So the East India Company was in reality, and again, please do not take my word for it. Look it up for yourself. The East India Company was the original drug pusher. The East India Company was the original drug cartel. Now, the East India Company predates Queen Victoria, but under Queen Victoria in the United Kingdom, it was a British geologist who discovered that Iran had oil. Excuse me. Now, during Queen Victoria's time, it was still Persia. It hadn't been called Iran until after the Second World War, when Europe decided to divide up the Middle East. Primarily the United Kingdom and France decided that they were just gonna fuck everybody. And that is the right word. That was their intent. So he discovers oil there, and they develop this partnership, which is if I'm not mistaken, it was called the Iranian Petroleum Partnership Company. The Iranian Petroleum Partnership Company took advantage of the fact that the Shah's family were drug addicts. And they made a really abusive business contract with the Qajari family, who's the Shah's family then was Qajar. They were deposed. They were deposed because they were awful. Now, to be fair, the United Kingdom had nothing to do with them being awful. And the United Kingdom only had a little bit to do with them being drug addicts. But it was what it was, and they made a bad deal. Now, APPCO, or APCO for short, the Iranian Petroleum Partnership Company, was a wholly owned subsidiary of modern-day Beyond Petroleum. And for those who pay attention, you'll know that Beyond Petroleum is wholly owned by Standard Oil, or John Davidson Rockefeller. Yes, that Rockefeller. Nelson Rockefeller, at one point in time, he was the richest man on earth. And yeah, those Rockefellers from New York. So Standard Oil got this deal with the Qajari family where they could take the oil out of the ground 20% of the income went to the Qajari family, and 80% of it went to Standard Oil. So that's how it started. So let's be fair here. The United States says they want regime change in Iran. But the United States has done regime change in Iran 5 times already. They're very good at it. In fact, they can change the regime of Iran anytime they want. They've always done it. And they'll continue to do it because it's who they are. It's who the American electorate is, because we don't care, right? So as an electorate, we don't care about anybody in the Middle East. It doesn't matter to us. So you have the Qajaris, they make this bad business deal. Time goes on. There's a revolution in Iran, and the Qajaris are out. New Shah comes in, makes a few changes, decides to westernize a little bit, but he can't control the country. So they do a democratic monarchy. They elect a parliament, they bring in a parliament. Now, we're in 1950s now. A lot of the problem is that Iran is generating oil. It's generating a lot of oil. They're one of the largest producers of oil in the world. And yet the country is not generating any money. So this democratic monarchy is under pressure to improve the economy internally. And how do you do that? Well, they're the largest importer. They're the largest exporter of sugar. They're the largest exporter of oil. And oil is actually where the money is for them. Sorry, fine. So this guy comes along, Mossadegh. Now, Mossadegh demands an audit of APCO. So APCO has actually been taking closer to 90% of the oil money out of the country. And they've been doing it by corruption, fraud, graft, and theft. An audit would discover it immediately. So Standard Oil decides, no, they can't have an audit. And they talk to President Eisenhower. President Eisenhower hands it over to the State Department. They hand it over to the CIA. And the CIA begins to affect regime change in Persia. Or by this time, now it's Iran. So they get the Pahlavi family, who is now the monarch. The Pahlavi family's oldest son is, I want to say, Mehdi Reza, or anyway. So Reza Pahlavi, he's the monarch now. But unlike the Christian tradition, and it's important to note that this is a Christian tradition, because even in Europe, you had matriarchies. See, so power didn't necessarily pass from father to son. There was always a way to pass from father to daughter until Christianity. Christianity changed that. So, Iran at this time is still primarily an Islamic state because of the Arab Empire. So you go back to the Crusades and, yeah, all that. So they're primarily Islamic. They don't follow the Christian tradition. The Pahlavis had a daughter that was older than Reza Shah. The daughter's name is Ashraf, and we'll get back to Ashraf. But through the Pahlavis, they tell a whole bunch of lies about Mossadegh. They get Mossadegh voted out, call him a criminal, convict him, and eventually execute him. And it's important to note that it was the CIA that was behind this, because Mossadegh was the one that wanted to audit Standard Oil. So that's your first regime change. Then Reza Pahlavi, over time, begins to realize that he's really getting screwed. They renegotiated the contract. It was a much fairer contract, but the U.S. was paying something like 1/8 of what the rest of the world was paying for oil. So if the U.S. bought Iranian oil, they were paying, I believe at the time, it was like 33 cents per barrel. Well, I'm sorry, no. The rest of the world was paying 33 cents per barrel. The United States was paying 3 cents per barrel. So Reza Pahlavi says, you know what, this is no good. This just doesn't work. And there are other natural resources. For example, to this day, Iran has either the largest or second largest untapped vein of uranium in the world. And we'll get back to that too. So, as Reza Pahlavi begins giving the CIA a hard time, Ashraf is really upset about the fact that she didn't get the throne. And the CIA is making her more upset about the fact that she didn't get the throne. So now Ashraf is doing things that Reza doesn't know about. She's going out into the country and basically rounding people up, jailing them, killing them, whatever. And the CIA not only knows about this, they're financing it, they're helping her build prisons, they're lending her assassins, U.S.-trained assassins, to kill Iranians for Ashraf, so that Ashraf can keep Reza in check. But the population is saying, hey, look, you know, this sucks. We're getting fucked. So Reza is beginning to lose control of the population. Now we're up to 1970. George Herbert Walker Bush takes over the CIA and goes to Iran and says, we want the uranium. And Reza did something very smart. It was the only smart thing he ever did. He said, you can have the uranium. You have to pay market price. Don't complain. You're already getting oil for free. You get the oil for free. The uranium, you're paying full market price. And of course, the U.S. can't have that. The U.S. is not allowed to have that. So they take the leash off of Ashraf. They let her go nuts. And she kills everybody. She destroys the country. She burns it to ash. And then you have the revolution. Too many competing interests. A guy who talked a good game but really was a dick. And if you read his books properly, you knew he was a dick. Comes back. He's been in France for, I think, the last 30, 40 years. He was in exile. He was in exile because he broke the law. So Khomeini comes back to Iran, And he's the one that ends up on top. And the U.S. is, oh my God, this is a disaster. But to be honest, Khomeini won the revolution because the U.S. guaranteed he'd win the revolution. So, now, the CIA got rid of Mossadegh. The CIA got rid of Reza Pahlavi. They got rid of Reza Pahlavi twice. CIA got rid of Ashraf. Up to this point, the CIA is responsible for 3 regime changes in Iran. Now we have modern day Iran. There have been 2 regime changes since, both of which are a result of maneuvering by the U.S. What was it? Rafsanjani was more moderate. He was more centrist when he came to power, and then Khamenei and so on. And then they put in that hardliner so that the Republicans could say, yeah, they're bad people. So the U.S. got what they wanted in the end by the 5th regime change, which post-Rafsanjani, the U.S. wanted Iran to be an enemy, and they said, yeah, they're bad people. And they put in the hardliners and the immobile people that you can't negotiate with. The CIA guaranteed they got to power. So now we've had 5 CIA regime changes in Iran. Now, it's important for me to let you know all of this. And I reiterate, I really, really reiterate, don't take my word for it. All of this is documented and it's declassified now. So look it up. Verify for yourself. Okay? Now, when Donald Trump says to the Iranian people, yeah, help is coming, there's 3 things that you need to know. 1, he's lying. He does not care about the Iranian people. He wants to erase them from the earth. So help is not coming. If he does send help to Iran, he's not sending it there to help them overthrow the current regime. He's sending it there to steal. Because the U.S. policy for Iran has always been to rob them. His intent is to steal from the Iranian people. This actually echoes the rant that I did on Palestine. So the U.S. and the United Kingdom, those 2 countries in particular, should not have anything to do with any peace process in the Middle East. And the reason for that is that because we, the United States, the United Kingdom, the West in general, but specifically the United States and the United Kingdom, has never dealt with the Middle East in good faith. Every time we deal with the Middle East, we rob them. Literally, we rob them. There is no reason for anyone in the Middle East to trust us, nor should they trust us. Because we've proven when they trust us, we steal from them. The same thing's going to happen in Iran. The new U.S.-approved regime that's going to come in is going to be a United States puppet government which will allow the U.S. to steal from Iran. So, whatever happens, they have a revolution, they don't have a revolution. The government moderates, the population moderates. Whatever happens, the Iranian people are going to lose here. You understand that. The outcome is only going to be bad for them. Particularly if the U.S. is involved. If the U.S. is involved, not only won't it get better, it'll get significantly worse. Because that's what our State Department does. Particularly with Marco Rubio and President Trump. Not only will it get worse, we'll send in people to kill everybody in Iran too. It's who we are. And I think you, the American electorate, needs to know that. Not that you're going to do anything with it. Not that you actually care. But you need to know it. That way, when everything in Iran goes to shit, you'll understand why. All right, I'm done.